Okay. Hope everyone can see the screen. The last session, we discussed about withholding tax setups and the process. These are the setups we have to complete. Based on the setup, this is what we plan to test the case. But we just stuck with the create tax codes. There our business unit is not displaying. The reason I just verified, the reason is, so by default, system is taking the withholding tax options. By default, it is copying, but one mandatory parameter is missing over there. That is the reason it's not displaying. If you go and select it, you can find your business unit when you are creating the tax codes. But the issue in this instance is, okay, issue is just what I'm finding. Create tax code, tax groups. When you talk about create tax groups, the task is not coming in our project. See here. For search for withholding tax group, it is not part of our project. And at the same time, if you search for the same task from outside of the project, you are getting, okay, we are getting no issues. From here also we can do, but thing is it's not allowing to use it. There is no hyperlink is getting enabled. Okay, let me look into that issue. Okay, because without creating the tax groups you cannot calculate the tax. I'll just look into the what is the issue, why it is not displaying. We'll try to fix it as soon as possible. Before we complete the payables application, I'll just make sure that I'll be covering this withholding tax also. But already we discussed what is the purpose, what setups, what is the process. Only the point is the same setups and the process need to be executed in the system. That I'll be covering maybe once I fix that issue. But before we complete payables, I'll do it. Okay. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it as pending. Okay, I'm going to mark it as pending. I will be covering everything, no doubt. So for now, it's temporary status is pending. Just let me look into that issue. Okay. Today we'll see the bills payables configuration process. Okay, we'll take this concept. Okay, and any issues, of course you have to start with our testing now, practice. Fine. Okay, we'll take this concept, bills payables configuration and process. What does it mean by bills payables? Bills payables nothing but so future dated payments. If you want to use issue PDC, post dated checks, that process we can implement by using the bills payables configuration. To implement bills payables configuration, what setups required? So setups point of view, in common options we have a, so we have to provide bills payable account in common options. Here common options just understand as all the time common options for payables and procurement. We have this setup, okay, which is equal to financial options. Okay, we already completed common options configuration. Since bills payable account is not mandatory, we didn't provide. Now we are going to work on bills payable, so we'll do that setup. The second point here is in payment method level we have to enable bills payables. Payment method level you have to enable bills payables. For existed payment method you can do it, or else we'll go and create the new payment method. That level we can enable it. In our case, instead of enabling for existing payment method, we'll go and see how to create the payment method. One point we'll understand. The same time, for newly created payment method we'll enable this bills payables so that we can test the same. Say I'll just give the point as create payment method for, okay, say for bills payables. That means we'll create new payment method and will enable bills payables. Okay, create payment method for bills payable. So these two setups we have to complete to implement bills payables. And when you look at the process, we'll create the invoice, we'll create standard invoice, and we'll make the payment. When you're making the payment, we can give the future date. Okay, so that when we print the check, the same future date only check will be printed, which will treat as a PDC check. Okay, we'll make the payment. There will mention future date. We'll create the payment with future date. Okay, which we call as PDC. So we'll be issuing the PDC checks. Okay, done. So this is what we are going to test now. Fine. Hope everyone can hear me. If any issue, please. Same time I'm recording. Yes. Okay, done. Fine. Go to common options. The other point here I want to share with you is here in our for testing we created project with the three segments: company and department account. So earlier what we did is we created for three segments, we created three value sets, and for three value sets we added few segment values. So since instances got refreshed, now again we did the same setups. This time what we did is, yes, we created for company department our own value sets and we assigned to the respective segments, but account we used value set called as corporate account. Okay, within the corporate account value set, this is a value set name. Okay, when you are doing the setups, better you can use, you don't create any value set. Okay, not required, because if you create your own, again you have to add all the account values which are required in the different application when you are testing. Better you can use value set called as corporate account for your account segment. Within the corporate account, most of the accounts are predefined. Okay, as a sample definition of in the vision environment, Oracle predefined. Okay, all values within that value set. This value set you can use for your account segment. The current environment what we are testing now, we assign corporate value set to account segment. So we have all the accounts, and but bills payable is not there, we added. Okay, that's what we are going to see now. Hope you got the point, but like just most of the people aware of this, but if somebody is need some more information on this, please let me know, we'll discuss now. Okay, fine, we'll go to our implementation project. Sorry. So this is our implementation project. Open this project. So search for the task called as common options. Common options for payables and procurement. So task name is manage common options for payables and procurement. Click on this task. Here we have the task. So here we didn't provide any bills payable account. Okay, here you can just take this, copy and paste and change the account. Change the account to bills payable. So this is a bills payable account. Say okay. Just save and close. Now next step is payment methods. Search for payment methods. Okay. Task name is manage payment methods. Then say create. I'll give the name as Fusion check for bills. Okay. Here this is a criteria. You can just accept the same. You don't have to change anything. Only the point here is you have to go to bills payable tab. Okay, there you have to enable use payment method to issue bills payables. Based on the checkbox, system will be opening the future date when you are processing the payments by using this bills payables. Okay, just we created. We're done with the two setups which are prerequisites. Now we'll see the process. We'll go and create an invoice. Just I'll create invoice with maybe the $5,000. For the same will be processed. Payment also for 5,000. Go to navigator. Sorry, here we have this invoices task. So go to this task panel, say create invoice. Select your business unit. Fusion US business unit. Supplier is Fusion Supplier 1 we created. Okay, this time we set payment invoice site level, supplier site level we given the currency, so it's getting defaulted. Okay, number I'll say 2222, currency amount is $5,000. You can give the amount, line amount is same 5,000. So you can validate this invoice. What's wrong with this? Sorry, we just I forgot to provide the distribution set. It's got validated. Post to ledger. Now we'll look at the payment method. Just go to invoice actions. Of course, before validation and all, also we can do the same. Go to invoice actions, select manage installments. If you take this navigation here, you can see which payment method you are going to use for this invoice. But here it is defaulting from supplier site. Supplier site level we just selected check as a default payment method. But now we want to process a payment to this invoice by using some PDC check. So relevant method you have to select. Click on this drop down, Fusion, check bills, select this method and save it. Okay, then say save and close. Now we'll make the payment for this invoice. That it will become mandatory where you have to select future dated, I mean future date, and for this payment, go to payment workbench, select payments task, click on this task list, say create payment. Select your business unit. Just taking some time. You can search for your supplier instead of going with the drop down option. Site is defaulting. Payment date, everything is getting defaulted. Now select bank account and change payment method to whatever you have at invoice level. Then check bills, Fusion payment process profile. Then we given all this information. Now here you can just provide the maturity date. See, the maturity date field is mandatory. The advanced options, if you go to advanced tab, maturity date, because it's for the selected payment method, the checkbox is future dated checkbox is enabled, so that's the reason it's a mandatory. So I'm issuing the payment today, but the future date I'm giving as a next month 3rd or any date you can provide. Done. You can proceed with the rest of information. By using this future dated check payment, you want to issue the payment to which invoice? Just select invoice. Invoice number 2222. That's the same selected here already. Select, say apply, say OK. You can say save and close. You don't see any difference in this process concept when you compare with the EBS. Same setups and same process, only just user interface and we'll see different. So that's all about bills payables concept. We know like further will be to get update, we'll be running the kind of program, okay, the bills payables program which will update the accounting. That would be the same standard process. And now we'll see the concept called as Payalone configuration process. It's a very simple concept. Let's see what is the purpose and how it works, what setups need to be performed. Okay, what is a Payalone? So basically by default you can issue the payment for multiple invoices with single check. But that is a default functionality. For any supplier, if you have multiple invoices, you can issue the payment for multiple invoice with one check, one document. But if you want to set the restriction saying for each invoice we have to issue separate check. Okay, one check you can use for only one invoice. In that case, you can enable this function which we call as Payalone. Through Payalone, system will enforce the control to issue separate check for each and every invoice. Okay, so to test this functionality, what we do is supplier level you have to enable Payalone option. Okay, not only supplier, like primarily site level is required. This is we'll be setting in address level, and site level and assignment level also. Three levels will be setting. We'll see that. Just we'll go and see one by one. So just I'm just mentioning the point. Enable Payalone at Supplier. The different levels we'll see. We'll go into that. Once we're done with that, that system will, for the specific supplier, it won't allow to process the check, one check for multiple invoices. That control will get enabled. To test that functionality, what we'll do is we'll create invoices. I'll create invoice 1, maybe with 2000. I'll create one more invoice 2 with 3000. So why we have to create invoice? Already we have invoices. But whenever you enable, after enabling this option, what are the invoices you create, for those invoices only that option will be applicable. For existing invoices, this control won't work. After enabling this control, what are the invoices you create, for those invoices only this Payalone control will be working. For that reason, we are going to create these two invoices for our testing. After creating these invoices, we'll go for payment. We'll go for payment. Payment will try to select these two invoices. If this functionality is going to work, it should not allow us to select two invoices. System will allow only one invoice. We'll test it and we'll see the same. Okay, because of this checkbox, it should not allow us to select more than one invoice with one document. Okay, when you're making the payment, we'll try to select these two. It has to give the error message saying that you cannot select more than one invoice because Payalone option is enabled for the supplier. We'll test the same. So first, supplier level, we have to enable this. Let's go to supplier. For supplier, navigation is under purchasing, procurement, go to suppliers. Say manage suppliers. Our supplier name is Fusion Supplier 1. Just click on the same to open, or else you can select the record, click on edit. Anything you can do. So we are at profile. Okay, so we have a different tabs: profile, address, site. Okay, and if you want to have some contacts and qualifications, supplier qualification, that's purely procurement related. Okay, so profile, under profile. Okay, in the profile level is not mandatory, but let's try to understand. If you set profile level, down the line it will get defaulted. That's the reason we are going to discuss. Under profile, we have a tab called as payments. Go to payments tab. Okay, under payments tab, we have subtops called as payment methods, bank accounts, and payment attributes. Go to payment attributes. Under payment attributes, again we have some child tabs. Out of that, you have to select the tab called as payment specifications. It's very simple. Go to supplier profile. Under profile, select payments. Under payment, select payment attributes. Under payment attributes, select payment specifications. Here you have to set the control. Okay, see here, if you place the cursor, it is giving the message also. Pay each document payables in separate payment. Okay, pay each document payable in separate payment, even if other document payable with like attribute exists and all. Okay, so this is what just enable. That's all. Just enable the checkbox and just say save. Then go to addresses, and directly you can click on the address name. It will open, or else select this record and click on edit. So here also you can see payments tab. Same process. Payments, payment attributes. Okay, payment specifications. Profile level you may ignore, but set at address and site level, because again it's the same address. If you are going to create one more site, that will get defaulted. So say save and close. Now go to sites and just click on edit, and here also we have the same tab, payments. It's a very important. Site level you have to set as a mandatory. The other level, whatever you set, that can be defaulted depending on the setups which you do. If you are going to create the new address or new sites, those will get defaulted, but since the site is already existed, there is no chance system will default. It's a mandatory you have to set at site level. When payment attributes and payment specifications, then enable this checkbox. That's all. And say cancel. Say done. Cancel in the sense here close. Fine. So now we done with the setup. For testing, let's create 2 invoices. Go to invoice workbench. Go to navigator. Where is this? Invoices. Tasks. So create invoice. And select business unit. Select your supplier. I'll just write the name also, invoice 1. Number I am giving as invoice 1. Here I'll take 2000. Then go to lines, enter line amount. Select distribution set or enter distribution through manual process in this field. Now for this supplier site level, the Payalone option is enabled. So automatically system will be marking for this invoice as Payalone is applicable. We'll see that when you are making the payment. So validate it. So I'm sorry.
Lakshman, I'm seeing a lag. Is it on my end or?
Maybe your end. I don't hear the same from others. Better you can just reconnect, or else you can check your internet connectivity. Okay, just you can create account and post to ledger. Done. So that's all. Okay, we just validated and accounted. Now we'll go and create one more invoice. Says save and create next. Select supplier. Just even if you tab out it will fetch, and here I'll give the invoice number as invoice 2. Here I'll just give $3,000. Just place the cursor in the amount field, it will open. Enter 3000. Select distribution set. The amount belongs to which accounts. Again say validate. Post to ledger. Say OK. You can say save and close. Done. Now we'll go to the payment workbench to process the payment. Go to this task list. Say create payment. Select your business unit, Fusion US business unit. Better you can type the name here. Okay, Fusion corporate account. Select payment process profile as same like Fusion payment process profile. Select payment document, Fusion check. Now click on add. Select and add invoices. Now if you see here, invoices whatever we have, invoice 1 and invoice 2, pay alone is set to yes. By default it will be no if you don't enable that pay alone for respective supplier site. Now I can select only one invoice. If I select only one, this invoice number 1, I cannot select invoice number 2. That's how it should work based on our setup. So I'm selecting invoice number 1 and say apply. Apply means it will be adding, and I'll try with the invoice number 2 to select, because if you notice here the document which we are using is 10,003. Document check number is 10,003. The same check number we cannot process the payment for more than one invoice. That's what we did the setup. I'm trying to select this also. It should give some message. You cannot pay for this invoice because its pay alone option is enabled for this. That's it. So this is error message we are getting. Yes, this is how it should work. Okay, now I cannot select more than one invoice because my requirement, my supplier is asking to pay separately for each and every invoice. That I have to set control from our side. That's all. Now we can make the payment for only one invoice. So that's all about Payalone concept. Okay, it allows us to process the payment for one invoice with one document, one check. Done. Sorry. The next concept is foreign currency invoice and foreign currency payment configuration process. Look, it's a very simple concept. So foreign currency invoice and foreign currency payment. What does it mean? So as per our current configuration, what we have in the system for our testing, that we take in USD, right? And we are doing all this testing in US related transaction. So now USD current ledger currency we call as functional currency. If you are going to record any transactions in other than ledger currency, means ledger currency we call as functional currency. Other than ledger currency, if you are going to record any transactions in different currency, that we call as foreign currency, right? So with the same foreign currency, if you create invoice, that is a foreign currency invoice, and the same payment, if you are processing the payment in the same currency, that is a foreign currency payment. So by default, system will allow us to process the payments in functional currency. It can be invoice or payment by following supporting configuration. But when we are dealing with the foreign currency related invoice and payments, okay, we have to do some additional setup. And one more point when you talk about foreign currency invoice and payments. In EBS, okay, EBS, it can be 11i or release 12. Okay, we can process the foreign currency invoice and payments. That means when you talk about foreign currency, invoice currency and payment currency should be same. The invoice currency and payment currency should be same. It can be like you have invoice, you have a functional currency USD, you can have a invoice in INR and you can make the payment in INR only. That means invoice currency and payment currency should be same. Okay, so that is a point. But in Fusion also the same we can handle. And but in 11a or R12, cross currency payments are not supported. When you talk about cross currency payments, say for example, I'll create invoice in INR, I want to make the payment in USD, or else I'll create invoice in USD, I want to make the payment in INR or different currency. So invoice in one currency, payment in different currency we call as cross currency payments. 11A or release 12, that functionality is not supported by our system, but in Fusion it will support. For that we have a separate concept also already I mentioned. Okay, that also will be testing later, but for now this is a concept we are going to discuss. So in this scenario, invoice currency and payment currency should be same, but that would be different foreign other than functional. So to test this functionality, what we'll do is we have to do certain setups. So when we talk about setups here, we have to provide some information in common options. So I'll say setup common options. I'm writing as common options, nothing but common options for payables and procurement. And this is the one. Already this setup we complete, but just will go and review which is relevant to this. The second point here is so bank account level setup. Okay, so bank account level we have to enable on checkbox where the bank account as we are going to use for multi-currency payments. We'll do bank account level setup and we'll define the daily rates, because when we so our functional currency is USD, but if you are going to create invoice in INR and when we are going to make the payment, conversion is required. Okay, for the purpose we'll create the daily rate. So you can select any currency as a foreign currency for our testing. Okay, but in current case we'll go with the INR as a foreign currency. That's all. These three setups we have to complete. After completing these three setups, what we'll do is we'll create invoice in INR, which is foreign currency, and we'll make the payment in INR. Here define rates between USD to INR. Okay, these are the three setups, and this is the transaction we are going to test. The first we have to go on to set common options, but already these are defined. Since the relevant, this is the actual reason why we did, we'll go and see that. First go to common options, go to implementation project, click on overview. We can navigate to our project which is assigned to current user. Open this project and here search for common options. Manage common options for payables and procurement. Click on go to task icon. Okay, here already these accounts we provided. Realized gain distribution and the realized gain loss distribution. Okay, realized gain and realized loss accounts we provided. These accounts are mandatory when we are dealing with this kind of foreign currency transactions or cross currency related transactions. And here conversion rate type, default rate type is corporate, require conversion rate entry. Okay, so this all already just we provided this information. This is the point we have to consider as one of the setup. And now we have to go to bank account. Click on search, say manage bank accounts. Any task you can take. Open the bank account, click on go to task icon. And here find your bank account given prefix as Fusion. The same name we can search. Let me maximize this. Still fine. Good. So now you can click on edit. So the account whatever we created, that we created only for USD, for dollar account we created. But now if you want to process the payments by using the same bank account with a different currency, you should give the permissions. You should enable that control provision at bank account level. For that, here once you open the bank account, under general tab here you can see checkbox called as multi-currency payment account, multi-currency account. This checkbox we have to enable so that the same this bank account can be used to process different currency payments. Okay, and just say save and close. Enable the checkbox and save and close. That's all. Okay, if you notice, if you take the same point in EBS, what we have to do is, yes, this checkbox, multi-currency allowed checkbox we have to enable in EBS. Along with that, okay, along with that you have to enable, okay, multi-currency payment checkbox also. But here that options and all they completely removed because they are not giving the control module wise control they are not giving. If you enable this multi-currency checkbox, this will support for any module with this bank account. That's how just that options they removed. Okay, done. So we completed these two setups. This just we reviewed, this we completed. Now we'll go and define the rates. The rates you can create through spreadsheet only. If you want to do the rates spreadsheet and all, you have to make sure that the ADF the ADF is already you installed. Already we discussed, right? We discussed and did. This is what I'm talking about. Download ADF or desktop integrator. They should be installed in your machine, from which machine you are connected to this server. So then only the spreadsheet will open and you can create and load the rates into system. Search for daily rates. Okay. Manage daily rates. Click on go to task icon. Here we have a tab called as rate daily rates. If you want to create some rate types, you can add here, maybe for translation and other purposes. Go to daily rates. Here we have a function called as create in spreadsheet. Click on create in spreadsheet. Okay. Open that. Say connect. To establish the connectivity between the spreadsheet and our instance, just log in through this. So the name is Fusion. It should work, but don't worry, it's sometimes giving error message, but ignore it. From currency, any currency you can set INR to USD. It automatically will create the rates for USD to INR, or else if you can set for USD to INR, it will create INR to USD automatically. Any conversion you can set. I'm setting USD to INR. From currency USD to currencies INR. Directly I can type here, and it's not mandatory how to select from LOB. It has to be proper test. Conversion rate type. Say corporate rate. From date, conversion start date. I'll go with the today. The date format here we have to follow is month, date, and year. So 11th November 30th 16. Just change this date format also, which is compatible in our environment. This is the format we have to use. To conversion date, I'm just going to set for only today. Just we are going to test today itself. That's enough. And conversion rate here, since I given from USD to INR, I'll go with say 66 or 7 or 8. We have say 67. Now simply you can say submit. Say okay. row inserted successfully. Close it. If you want to find the same rates from here, you can find from USD to INR. The rates we define, that if you want to see, you can see. Just now we load it. Click on search. Rate is 67. This is what we defined. Done. Okay, we done with all the setups which are required. Now we'll go on to test the transaction process. Okay, we'll create the invoice in INR. Go to navigator, invoices, create invoice, select your business unit, sorry, we know if supplier is foreign supplier, the supplier level whatever the currency we given, that will be defaulting here. For this supplier we just set default currency as USD, so same is defaulting. Okay, but we'll change it. Instead of creating the foreign supplier with by defaulting the foreign currency, just we are going to use the same supplier but by changing the currency. Now I'll select, before that let me enter invoice number, or I'll just enter invoice number INV1, select currency as INR. So I'm just going to enter 30,000. Okay, enter 30,000. I'll go to line level also I'll provide 30,000. Select distribution, and just I'll say validate this invoice and account the same. Your system is taking payment should be done in INR only. Ideally, like invoice currency and payment currency will be same. If you want to change, you can do that. That comes under cross currency. That for that we have a separate concept. At that time we'll be discussing this. Now just we can take this invoice for payment. So payment amount 30,000 INR. This bank account is system is allowing reason that bank account level multi-currency option is enabled. Okay, conversion rate type is corporate. The same system is defaulting conversion. 1 rupee is equal to how many dollars? 0.0149. So on so. Then say submit. We know like if there is any variance, okay, between these rates and all, that can be resulted as gain or loss. That amount will be hitting to realize gain or loss accounts, whatever we given in the uh, common options level. In the current case, there won't be any scope of gain or loss because the same rate, same day, like we created and as well as processed. This is also same as EBS. You don't see any difference compared to that. How this functionality and setups and process works in EBS, the same way it works. But only the thing is, just here we have how to define and how to do in this environment. We are trying to understand. So that's all about foreign currency invoice and payments. Now we'll see the concept called as supplier merge. Okay, the first point, what does it mean by supplier merge, when we have to do the merge? It's very simple. So say for example we have a supplier called as ABC Corporation, and we have few invoices with ABC Corporation, and after some time some other user created ABC Corporation as a ABC Corp in our system. So that means supplier duplication. The organization is same, but we created with the two different names in our system. With the two different names, we are managing the invoices and all. So after some time, we'll realize that ABC Corporation and ABC Corp both are same. In that case, we should not continue the same approach. We have to finalize. We want to go with which name, ABC Corporation or ABC Corp. So we have to finalize. Say for example, you just finalize the name you want to go with is ABC Corporation. In that case, the ABC Corp you have to merge with ABC Corporation. So in that case, with ABC Corp, what are the invoices, okay, and payments and POs, whatever you have, purchase orders, whatever you have, all can be merged with ABC Corporation. That you can decide whether you want to merge only open invoice or payments also, POs also. What exactly you want to merge, you can decide. But ABC Corp information can be merged with ABC Corporation. This is one case where duplication. Another case is if one company is going to acquire another company. Say we have two suppliers, supplier A and supplier B. We are dealing with A and B, two suppliers, but our supplier A acquired company called as B. B also our supplier. In that case, the A can inform us saying that so there is no more B and we acquired, and whatever you have to pay to B, you have to pay to A only. Okay, in that case also we'll be merging in this scenario B with A because of acquisition. And other case you generally you see will be merging just not supplier, just supplier sites. Supplier will remain same. Say for example we have one supplier who has two sites, and we are dealing with the two sites. We have some invoices from the two sites. Now say supplier is going to close the site 2, then we have to make the payment, whatever we have to send the payment to site 2, those payments also we have to submit to, we have to process to site 1 only. So if this is the case, if supplier is saying you process the payments to site 1 only, what instead of sending the payment to 2, in that case in our books we have to maintain the record saying that the payment should be processed to supply site 1. In that case also will be merging site 2 with site 1. These are the different reasons why we go with the supplier merge. To understand this how the process works, it's a very simple process. Again, it irreversible activity. Once you perform the merge, you cannot undo this. Okay, to test this functionality, what we do is already we have one supplier called as fusion supplier 1, right? Fusion supplier 1 we have. Now what we'll do is we'll create one more supplier called as just fusion supplier. We have supplier called fusion supplier 1. Now we'll create the fusion supplier. The all the invoices, whatever all the transactions, whatever we have with the fusion supplier 1, those will merge with the fusion supplier. This is what we are going to test. This supplier already existed, we are using, we have transactions. Now we'll create the new supplier, because to test this functionality we need one more supplier. We'll create one more supplier, we'll merge supplier 1, fusion supplier 1 with fusion supplier, or else you may give the name as supplier 2, anything you can give. Better you give 2. Okay, we'll create supplier fusion supplier 2. We'll merge fusion supplier 1 with fusion supplier 2, so that all the transactions will be moving to fusion supplier 2 only. Let's go and do it. We'll go and create the supplier called as fusion supplier 2. Now go to supplier definition page. Under procurement, select suppliers function. Go to task panel, say create supplier, give name as fusion supplier 2. Business relationship, spent authorized means approved supplier. So this organization type is corporation. So I create. Okay. So system is giving match score 55% match score it is giving. There is a supplier already existed, but we made difference with number. So one and what we are creating two. Okay. So this is what system is just showing the message. This simply you can cancel it. Why it's gone? Sorry, like it's I think I did wrong action. Fusion supplier
What happens
2.
with ignore message and create supplier?
That's what I just I selected wrong one. Spent authorized. Import match results and create supplier. No, it's wrong. Where is this section? Yep. The same option, but basically that import they're given, but that's not correct. Okay. So just click on that option and here the same information whatever given. Now go to address, create address information. So here I'll give fusion address, fusion supplier address. Just I'm copying to paste the same for other fields. Country code is US. Search. So when you are practicing in this environment, I recommend you can go with the other than India. If you go with India, you may come across some issues in certain cases, majorly in terms of legalities and legislations, etc. So I recommend you to go with your for practice also to take the example as US related configuration and all. Because the localization is not ready for India, there could be some issues since Indian clients cannot use these Fusion applications for any financial related transactions. You can select any one of the state. City will be state will get defaulted. Select postal code and what is the purpose? So it's for ordering and remit and say save and close. Then go to sites. So create. Select same address here. That will default as a site name. You change it. Site 1 I'm giving. Now save. Just go to. You can set this default payment method. Select it. Go to this more option and mark it as default. Save. Then go to site assignments. Click on add. Okay, here if you want to set defaults, liability, prepayment, bills, payables, all you can set it up, including distribution set also. And from now we'll set distribution set to get defaulted. So it is showing something like warning because we didn't provide any contacts. If you place cursor, you can see this site has no active contacts. It's not mandatory, leave it. Then we have one more supplier. Now what we'll do is we'll merge supplier 1 with 2. Okay. To perform this task, go to this task panel, and here we have task called as merge suppliers. Click on this. It is irreversible. If you perform one time, that's all. You cannot undo. Okay. Just here say request. We are going to request the system to merge the information from one to other supplier. Say add row. From which supplier? Which supplier you want to merge with supplier 2? Supplier 1 we want to merge. So select, okay, fusion supplier 1 as a from supplier. Select supplier site, fusion site 1, 2 supplier, site. See here the same site. This site you want to copy to this supplier, you can enable copy site, or else if you want to go with this supplier name site only, you can select the same. Now transfer options. Which information you want to merge, that you can decide here. Simple. These are the different options. All invoices or none. None means we never do this action. Purchase orders or purchase orders and all invoices, or purchase orders and unpaid invoices or only unpaid invoices. What you want to copy, you can select accordingly. Here all invoice means paid and unpaid. The other option they given as unpaid also. Fine. You can select any one of the option. Just I'm selecting purchase orders and all invoice, paid and unpaid all invoices, and POs also, but we don't have any POs, not an issue. I'm selecting this. Done. Now you can submit this request. Then automatically system will merge all the invoices and payments which are there with the supplier name called as Fusion Supplier 1 to 2. Submit. So yes, the same message. See, it's a reversible. Now you may go and monitor this request, or else from here also you can see that the request which is running. Supplier merge is running, status is ready. The same you can go and see from the schedule process also, right? You can see the same status here also they given, but always you can go and see for anything from schedule processes. So if you are not finding the schedule process function, see here, if you just go to navigator, if you try for schedule process, if you are not finding the schedule process, the reason is if you don't assign employee role to your user. Seems to somebody unmuted. I don't know the reasons. Sometimes somebody is doing. Even I don't find who is doing this. Please, I request you all to check from your end. We can hear. Yep. Thank you so much. Okay. So if you go to the navigator, you can see this schedule processes. This you can see only if employee role is assigned to your user. It can be IDM user or implement employee user, doesn't matter. From where you created user doesn't matter. But if you assign the role called as employee to your user, then only you will be able to access to schedule process. Just note that point. And from here you can see the status of this request. Merge supplier status is succeeded. Now you can go and find the any invoice or information is merged with the supplier 2 or not. So I'll go to the invoice workbench. Now you don't find any invoices with the supplier 1. Now all invoices you can find with the supplier 2. Go to task called as manage invoices. And select supplier. See that the supplier 1 is deactivated, and just name only coming, there's no number also is getting displayed. It will get deactivated. Then select supplier 2. Now you can find Such you can find all the invoices with the supplier name. See, which are created with the supplier 1. Because again we did setups, right? That is the reason we don't have many invoices. Whatever we created today, those invoices only we have, right? There are no other invoices which we created earlier because since it got refreshed. Okay, that's all about supplier merge to understand. Document not saved. What's wrong with this? Sorry, just 1 second. What happened to this? Okay, done. Okay, that's all about supplier merge. The other concepts. Interest invoice. Okay, interest invoice configuration process. What does it mean by interest invoice? It's very simple. So when you are making the late payments, okay, when you are making the late payment, how do you, okay, so in that case, what happens is supplier may charge interest. It may not happen in all the cases. If you are paying the late payment, supplier will be charging the interest. Definitely, few suppliers will be showing interest to charge interest, right? So in that scenario, that case we have to handle where system has to calculate the interest, how much amount we are paying apart from the invoice amount. So that case we can handle with interest invoice concept. What system will do is when you have some invoice and if you are paying the late payment for that supplier, that on that invoice interest is applicable. How interest is applicable or not can be decided based on the supplier. For that specific supplier, interest is applicable for late payments. When you are making the payment for the same supplier, system will calculate the interest. With the interest amount, it will create the interest invoice. We know that. The same we are going to test. To implement the solution, we have to do certain setups in the system. So what setups we have to do? So the first, say like related to this interest, we have to configure, say configure or say setup invoice options. In invoice options, we have to go and specify for our business unit interest invoices related option. We have interest invoices we want to create organization level, BU level, we have to specify that. Then other option is in case of EBS, in payable options. In payable options, we have one tab called as interest tab. In payable options, we have one tab called as interest tab. Under interest tab, you can go and enable that options. You can go and enable, so create interest invoice, minimum interest amount, and interest expense and interest liability account, right? So all this information will set up in the under interest tab of payable options in 11A or R12. But in Fusion, like in the place of payable options, they just came up with the two options, invoice and payment option. So we have to set up this. And the next one, we have to define interest rates. We have to define the interest rates. This is the second setup. And third setup, for which supplier interest is applicable, that supplier level we have to select option as a, so interest invoice creation as yes. Okay, I'll write here as a set interest invoice option at supplier level. It's exactly supplier site. But when you compare with EBS, in EBS this interest calculation control will be setting at supplier level, not site level. But here in the Fusion will be setting at site level. For a specific site you can set up. These three setups we have to complete so that the process can be implemented. To test this, what we'll do is we'll create the invoice. We'll create invoice. If I create invoice today, if I'm going to make the payment today, no scope, interest will be calculated. For that reason, what I'll do is I'll create invoice with the past date. I'll create invoice by taking the date as, say for example, I'll take this month first November. I'll create invoice with this date, and what I'll do is I'll give the payment terms as immediate, so that the due date also will become first November only. But we'll make the payment with the today date. We know, like the reality, there will be invoices outstanding, and we'll be making the payment automatically. The system will understand. But to create some test scenario, I'm taking this example. So we'll make the payment today. So today is 30th. So actually that invoice should be paid on 1st November, but we are paying on 30th. For these days, how many days late and what is the interest rate applicable, accordingly system will calculate the interest. Then you can see the interest invoice with the interest amount. So this is what we are going to test now. Okay,
Just one question.
please.
Is it same as EBS now? So
Yeah.
one
Correct.
interest rate is
Yeah,
everything.
I got your point. Yes, no change in that. That is a drawback we have in EBS. The same rate will be applicable for all the supplier. You don't have a separate function where you can go and set interest for supplier wise, specific site wise. No, it's a common rates only. Here also we have to manage. So the reality will go with
Okay.
some workaround, like you may enable DFF at site level, or else you can go with a custom interest rates management form, something else. But standard functionality wise, same as ABS. No changes. There should be some improvement, but we don't see. Here also,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks. Common rates. Yeah, fine. So now we'll see these setups first. First, we'll go to invoice options. So just any questions or any queries to understand anything, please let me know. You can stop me and you can ask me the questions. Fine. Just these three setups will help us to create the interest invoice in case of late payments for any supplier. So now we have to go to implementation project to do these setups. We know, like here, this everything we are doing here. So since we have a uh, rights to do the setups other side transaction also, but when we are working, we know very well. So this can be separately can be managed depending on the user role. So fine, I'm just going to the project. Click on implementation projects. You can see all the projects. To navigate to whatever the project is assigned to you, click on overview, then open this project and say invoice options. Click on search. Click on manage invoice options. Click on go to task icon. So here you can find some section called as interest. Here this is interest. And for our business unit, within this business unit, if you want to allow the users to create interest invoices, if applicable, first we have to give the permission at BU level. So that we are going to set. Say enable create interest invoices. And what should be the minimum interest amount to create interest invoice? 10 $10, and here you can provide interest expense distribution. But in case of EBS, we'll have a interest expense and interest liability account also, but they're given here only interest expense account. The liability account it will take from supplier site only if you have, otherwise from common options. And department, select account. Search with interest Since this is a corporate account value set, you can find most of the values. So here we have interest payable account. The same I'm going to select and say okay. Sorry, interest payable, not interest expense, right? Sorry. Interest expense account and say okay. That's all. Okay, now you can say save and close. Okay, the set assignment, because fine. Basically after refreshment I just asked another guy to do the setups. Okay, who's into our training. Okay, he just created. Later I changed this one, just change to immediate. This is what it's conflicting. Save and close. It will accept. The set assignment for the payment terms and the fusion immediate payment term is not complete for this business unit. Yes, I changed it. Now at least it should understand the same. Here also we have the same. Find that done. And here also. Done. We completed at invoice options level. The next one is define interest rates. So search for interest rates. Okay, manage interest rates. Click on go to task icon. Here click on add. There are no rates defined in this environment. I'll say 1st November to 31st December. The rate is 15%. Save and close. This rate is applicable for all the suppliers. That's all we're done with the interest rate definition. Now what we have to do is, this interest is applicable for which is supplier, that we have to go and set supplier site level. Fine. So say click on done. Now you can go to the navigator, find your supplier to set interest related option. Suppliers. And go to manage suppliers, find our supplier, fusion supplier 2, search, then click on edit to open. Now straight away just go to sites, edit site level, and go to tab called as payments. Not payment, just go to invoicing. Under invoicing tab, site level, under invoicing tab we have a terms section. Terms, there we have one option called as create interest invoices. Okay, see here the term which we use in R12, the same term still they are defaulting. Payables options, not payable options. Okay, set to yes. That leave it. Only the option we require here is create interest invoice. You have to set to yes for this specific site. See here we are setting at site level. Site is site 1. Then say save and close. That's all. This is only one setup we have to do. Then say save and close. Okay, we completed all the setups. Now for testing, we'll create one standard invoice with that amount. Okay, I'll create standard invoice with $1 lakh, and date I'll take past date, and payment terms immediate. Go to invoice workbench. Say create invoice. Select your business unit. Supplier. Fusion. Now we have only one active supplier because other supplier got merged, so you don't find that information here. So it'll get defaulted. Now it's very important. Date, you have to look at the date, and that's very important. INV2. This supplier site level, we didn't set any default currency. So select it. Next time when you go to the supplier definition, we'll do that. I'm going to enter 1 lakh. $1 lakh. So here date I'm going to select as 1st of November. Okay, fine. Will affect new lines and all. Yes, that is fine. So the line level also got changed. Since site level supplier site level we given distribution set, that is getting defaulted. 1 lakh. Validate, and optional you can account it. Now we can see this invoice is validated and accounted. Other side due date is 1st November. November 1st is due date. No holds on the invoice. Fine. From here you can make the payment, or else directly we'll go and do payment from payment workbench. Let's go to payment workbench. Payments. Say create payment. Select your business unit. Select your supplier. Better you can type here instead of searching. This one. For invoices it is not available, but for payment there may be some transactions lying. So payment date is 30th November. Bank account and the payment process profile. Fusion payment process profile. Select payment document. Fusion check. And here once you select invoice, automatically system will calculate interest. So which invoice? This invoice. Select it. Immediately it will calculate the amount. So calculated interest as a $1,208.33. That's all. So what you can do is you can say save and close. This payment amount, and this is payment 1 lakh, but it's added interest amount. Total amount is paid. Now you can go to the invoice workbench and you can find the interest invoice. Sorry, just select manage invoices. manage invoices. Search supplier. We'll find interest invoice. So this is the interest invoice system created. It's taking the actual invoice number only as a prefix, then it is adding suffix as a int1. So along with the standard invoice only, we process the payment for the same. So you can see the status also paid. It's validated and paid, but not at a accounted. If you want to account, you can do that. Okay, this is all about interest invoice. Then our next concept is recurring invoice. Okay, sorry. So when you talk about recurring invoice, so what is the purpose of recurring invoice? So if you have a case where you have to create the invoice very frequently on some periodic base, maybe monthly or weekly, or whatever it may be the case, take simple example, some utility bills. Okay, the utility bills and all you have to pay recurring base, say monthly. So every time the supplier will be same, almost the information will be same, and most of the time amount also will be same. If it is a rent or some other related fixed amount, or else some cases like electricity bill, telephonic bill, the vendor and entire information will be same, but amount will be keep changing. Whatever it may be, like the invoices we have to create on recurring base. In that scenario, instead of providing the information in the system every time, okay, every month, take simple example, every month, or how oftenly you will be entering invoices, what you can do is you can go with the solution called as recurring invoice concept. With this, what you can do is you can create template one time. From the template, by using the template, you can create multiple invoices at a time. Every time you don't need to go and enter, since information is going to be the same, you can make a copy of invoices from the template. Generally for something like some to capture the periodic expense, when you have a periodic expense, okay, which will be like it's more recurring. When you say periodic, it's a recurring. So that kind of in that scenarios will be using the recurring invoice concept. To implement this recurring invoice concept, what setups we have to do? First we have to create payables calendar, which is equal to special calendar in abs. It's a mandatory here. In case of withholding tax, not mandatory. Depending on case only, that will become mandatory. But here, 100% mandatory. And when we are dealing with this recurring invoice and all, we require distribution set also, or else you should match with the PO's information. So basically, this we have to set up ready. Then we'll create a recurring invoice template. So these are the one-time setups. Okay. Anyway, distribution set already we have. We are not going to create, but for understanding, then what we'll do is we'll generate the recurring invoice whenever we require. All are one-time setups. Okay, by using the template, whenever you need recurring invoice, simply you can generate it. So that's it. This is what we are going to see in the system. First, we'll complete these setups. You have to create the payables calendar for recurring invoice. Let me write that. Create payables calendar for recurring invoice. Go to implementation project. Click on go to task icon. Select your business unit. You want to create this calendar for which BU. Search for your BU. Just type Fusion and use enter. It will fetch. These are the defaults. Okay. Just which comes in the environment. So here you can create for say Fusion recurring. It's not accepting more than that. So purpose for recurring, so you select for general purpose. Okay, period frequency yes 12, and take the start date. Take start date as a Jan. Format, I'll go with this. Just click on generate and add one more year, 2017 also. One. So save and close. Fine. We come done with this setup. Now we have to create the distribution set. What are the distribution set we have that we can use for the same for this concept? So again, I'm not going to create. Now we'll go and create the recurring invoice template. Okay, this template you can create through spreadsheet. Fusion in R12 and all will create with normal form. So template the same way here we can create through spreadsheet. So go to invoice workbench. Here create invoice, sorry, not this. Create recurring invoices. This is our task we have to use. Create recurring invoices. Say connect. Ignore it. So this is the recurring invoice template. Select your business unit. Give invoice number. I'll give this the number. It will take as a prefix. I'll take as RI. Invoice amount. Every month you want to create invoice with how much amount? Say 25,000 I'm giving. Select supplier, double click. You can find your supplier from here. Select supplier site. Just enter invoice currency, USD. Payment currency. It will take default same, but you can provide if it is different, or in case of same also you can give it. Here you have to select the payables calendar. Double click. Fusion recurring. Here the period logic they given like this. So in EBS, what happens is we have to give total number of periods and the starting period you have to specify. But here it's not like that. You have to give from and to two periods. Double click from which period to which period. Period range you have to select. It's not like number. So I want to create invoices for November and December. Just select that information. Amount you can enter. So 25,000. Select distribution set or else enter manual distribution combination or distribution set. In case of EBS, you don't have an option to enter manual distribution in case of recurring, but here we have select distribution set. Here I think we have a distribution set as a fusion expense. Select the same. Okay, that's all. Now you can say generate. It will generate two invoices in AP now. Row inserted successfully, and just it is importing into our base tables. So message you can see the number of recurring invoices created are 2. Say okay. You can close this. Okay. So now you can go to the instance. What you can do is you can see in the recent list. Just refresh. It's not coming defaulting. No issues. I'll just go to manage invoices. Invoice number starts with RI. Click on search. You can find those invoices. We give an invoice number as RI. It created invoice number RI1 and RI2. One for November, other one for December. Invoice amount is 25,000. Status is not validated. You can just, it's a standard process. You can open and you can validate an account. You can do rest. To get all the options here, just you can click on edit. It will open up all the required options which you want to perform on the invoice. Now you can see the big list of options and validate. Validated. Account and post ledger. Okay, so this is all about recurring invoice concept. Fine. Fine, I think we just 10 minutes are left. The 10 minutes may not be enough to discuss about this third party payments. Okay. Fine then. Okay. Fine. We'll see in the tomorrow session. This third party payments. What else we have? Third party payments, cost currency, invoice approvals, configuration, testing, security profile, hold, supply. Okay. Fine. Okay. Okay. Fine. We'll see anyway. Still 3 4 sessions are required on API, I guess. We'll see anyway just how much time is required. We are ready for that. So any questions on today's session, please? Or else any questions on previous classes? Okay.
Lakshman, this is Satya.
Satya, please.
When the instance was refreshed, right?
Sorry?
Like this, if this incident happens, right, the clone or the instance refresh,
Monthly
what
one.
happens in? Oh, sorry.
Monthly ones, monthly base.
Yeah. So if you are middle of configuration, right, in client's place, how that will? How do you prevent?
See, client place it won't happen, right? That is our dedicated and all. This is not for that purpose. This is just for testing and it's a vision, right? So that is the reason Oracle guys are doing this. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Fine. Any other question?
And in the bills payment, it's actually specific to EBS also.
Same function.
Then, same function, right?
Same
but
function.
Does the invoice will be marked as paid?
Yeah, invoice will be marked as paid, but accounting is different, right? In EBS also, same here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Invoice will be marked as paid. We paid, we processed, we given check, right? So that's how it is marked as paid. Only accounting makes the difference where that is not. It's not a direct payment, and it has to be matured, and then only the accounting will be changed to actual effective of accounting. Yeah.
Marked as paid, the status would be
paid only.
Payment status would be negotiable. Negotiable?
No, for anything which is pending for clearance, for that negotiable. It can be anything, right? After making the payment for any invoice, so if you make the payment, negotiable till you go and do the clearing. The same way for this also.
Oh.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Hey, Lakshman, this is Armstrong.
Yeah, Armstrong, please.
So you covered a lot of things on the invoice, very nice. I just have only one thing.
Yep.
So nowadays the clients are very much interested in this integrated imaging invoicing solution. So for invoice can.
Yeah.
You don't. Just my question is, I know the high-level process you get in the cloud implementation. You will have on email, so all the scanned invoice can be sent to that email.
I'll take you through this process. Only the constraint is we cannot email that scanned image to the Oracle where they'll put into their system and they'll connect to our instance. It's not possible. I'll take you through the process. When you're into project, you can handle that. It's not a big job. It's a very easy job how Oracle made. Okay, I'll take you through that. I'll give you the information so you'll be able to work. That included in the course content also same. Okay, we'll do
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Lakshman, this is...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm asking about the pay group, Lakshman. Worry.
Yeah. Oh, Satya is asking. I'm sorry. Yes, Satya, please.
The pay group, right? The pay group we are not able to see in earlier class.
Yeah,
we are doing a payment.
Yes. Because we are not, we didn't take that. I'll show you how to create the pay group and where to select and all. Basically, when we seen that, we are not able to find and that it was not we could not see that.
Because
I just made a note.
Because a lot of the payments will go through that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying no. Even we discussed the same point when you are making the payments, right? The payment process profile, okay, payment process request. That is one of the criteria. I'm not saying that is not got priority.
Yeah.
That's very much important. Just where most of the cases you may use it for criteria purpose. We'll do that. That's what I just mentioned. That I'll show you where to create. Also, I'll show you and where we can select. Just when we are trying to do that, we didn't see that field. That's all. I made a note. Not only that, there are some other questions also, right? Payment format, and there are many questions. I'm just making a note. I'm not leaving on the classes, just take hearing and leaving. I'm not doing that. Just I'm making a note each and every point what you people are raising. Okay, those I'm just making note. I'll be covering for sure within payables.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. We'll do that. Any other questions? I think Venkat. Venkat, any question?
Yeah, Lakshman. I'd like to ask this regarding the setups, what and all we are doing now. I heard that in the Fusion, we can download the full setups and we can export it also, right?
Setups you can download and export. After doing the setups, you can do it. First, you should do the setups as per your requirement. That setups you can export into spreadsheets that you can import into another project, or you can move to another instance. That is possible. But thing is, general practice is we are not doing in the projects when we are doing it. If something goes wrong, it will reflect somewhere and all. That will become very critical issue. So that's the reason, like more Max, when we are working on these Fusion projects, Max, we are using that rapid implementation spreadsheet to load the chart of accounts and primary ledgers BUs information. Apart from the rest, generally we are going with the normal configuration. Take simple example for finance configuration. How much time it takes? Hardly, if you sit in front of system with the dedication, it won't take more than 1 day also. 1 day also not required, but I'm just taking as 1 day, not more than 1 day, which will avoid a lot of risk of loading. Okay, that's how generally you don't see. I didn't see just to loading all these setups and all, but the option is available. And there was case also where there was some issue. So just we contacted Oracle, and they are saying that there is some issue with that we are working and all. That's the reason just we ignored, and we are doing the setups only in that project also. So that's the reason now you don't see kind of practices who are just exporting and importing rather than doing the manual configuration.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question, Lakshman. Regarding the DFFs, still that functionality is
Yes.
available?
Yeah, DFFs we have, yes.
For every screen, right?
Yeah, for everything you can enable DFFs. Even in Artwell also, in the web pages you can enable it, right, for supplier and other information. Now the same environment you can do that. DFFs we have, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Anyway, I'm available for 5 more minutes in the same session. Okay, if you have any questions, meantime you can ask me, or else you may leave from the session if you don't have any questions. Fine, no questions. Then, okay, see you tomorrow. Have a good day and good night. Thank you so much.